Ladies and gentlefolk, welcome to another heart-pounding installment of Beyond Bitcoin. It's been a while since our last episode, due in a large part to a breakdown, attempted repair, and subsequent loss of my laptop. I'm pleased to announce that you will all be receiving double your money back. About a month ago, I interviewed Sean Wilkinson, the lead developer of Storj. Since then, his crowd sale has ended, so I'm really sorry about that, Sean. None of this is investment advice anyway, though, so hey, what can you do? Head on over to storjtalk.org and you'll see a whole bunch of awesome bounties kicking around there for development, marketing, and any other kind of cool skills that you can rummage up. I'm sure they can find a use for you. It's an extremely inclusive community, but right now they're light on social and media managers, writers, designers. They of course can always use web developers and backend developers. And for those of you who are only interested in audience participation points, skip to the end of the episode for the magic word. That's enough from me. Sean Wilkinson awaits on the other side of the musical interlude.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Sean?
Just fine. And yourself?
No, not bad, man, not bad. So you're involved in the Storj project, which is a distributed cloud storage service.
Essentially, yes.
And
A word for it also is collaborative cloud. That's another kind of category it fits into.
collaborative cloud, that's I haven't heard that. That's an interesting term.
Hey, I learned it a few days ago too, and I kind of liked it. So.
Yeah.
That's another one that I'm putting out there. Sounds more friendly.
Oh yeah, it really does. Yeah. there's a swathe of new jargon that we're getting to play around with. So nice to have something else on the pile.
Kind of invent our own as well. I remember when Dan Larimer was always talking about DAC. And that kind of stuck, and a lot of other people were trying to suggest a few other names for the same term.
Yeah, they're all about, but yeah, DAC seems to be the one. It just, you can define what the letters stand for on your own, though.
Oh yeah, there's still some confusion on that.
Okay, well let's dig into Storj to begin with, and then see where we go from there. So you guys won, you and a team. I'm not sure who was.
Jim Laurie. So we went to the Texas Bitcoin Hackathon, kind of made kind of the public debut of the project, and we ended up winning first place unanimously among all the projects there. And there's some pretty good ones there. And so then we kind of got started and really said, okay, now we've got some feedback on our idea that we're not totally crazy. This is crazy enough that it might just work. So then we got a lot of support in terms of building out, and that really gave us a nice little push to get things moving.
When was that exactly?
Oh man, you kind of lose track of time in the crypto space just because things move so quickly. That was a couple of months ago. I think that was in March, maybe.
Yeah, things do move quick. It's really crazy, and I mean, Storj seems so. At least I haven't actually played with the software yet, but it seems amazing. It seems really mature from the website. It looks like it's just about ready to go. Could you tell me what development stage it's in?
Sure. So our development strategy is a little weirder than most, and that's just something I've tailored from being in the crypto space for about 2 years. You have the traditional cycle, which is, we're going to release it in 2 weeks TM. And then we see what happens with that. A year later, there's like, oh, maybe, we have it. And so I went with more of a approach where we just build it a feature at a time. So we say, here's some initial prototype software. It's rough, but tell us what you like, what you don't like. We'll fix it, and then we'll re-release. So just build on it feature by feature. And I think that's kind of a better model to go with in the current model, just because we're just pushing really the boundaries of what computer science and technology and all these other technologies can do. So let's keep our goals fairly short and go from there. So in terms of that, we built out some prototype software called Metadisk, which is essentially a nice little front end for our network. So you can go there, it's a web app, drag and drop your files and encrypt them, distribute it through our nodes and our network, and store the relevant data in a blockchain. Then it also has an API built from that. And so we actually had a user throw up essentially a decentralized video player based on our decentralized file storage web application. And they did that in a few hours. That surprised me as much as anyone else. And then we're working on the more back-end protocol portion of really the core storage, where you get, the proof of storage, and you're checking the files to make sure they're available, they're redundant, they haven't been modified. So we have a bunch of kind of libraries floating around, and we're all working to make those a little bit more robust and put them together into a nice client that people can use without too much hassle.
Cool. And so you have, so the way it works right now, you have the drive mining software and Metadisk, which is the...
That's where you use to store your files, essentially. So those APIs would build into kind of a decentralized Dropbox that you'd have on your computer, and you'd sync a file and you drag and drop it. And plenty of other applications that we're kind of thinking up and prototyping now. We're thinking also of kind of changing the drive miner software name, just because we want to get away from the concept that this is mining. It's really not. Mining is, computationally intensive. It secures the blockchain, but you're not really getting much value out of this. We want to go with maybe the idea of farming, or some ideas that we're throwing around for the name, to get the idea that you're taking a resource that you have and cultivating or renting it out, rather than just doing brute force computational mining.
Yeah, well, you're actually providing a service with the
resources,
as opposed to just burning electricity, which is the appeal.
Exactly. Exactly. So that means, a lot more people happy on the end in terms of farming. Because you're not burning all this electricity. You're taking a resource that you already have, or you can go to Best Buy or local store and pick up a couple hard drives. You don't have to wait 2 years to receive an ASIC. So we think it's a better model. And the market's bigger. I mean, look at Bitcoin, it's an $8 billion market. And you have essentially the world's largest computing network, and, bigger than top 500 supercomputers combined by orders of magnitude. And you're trying to mine away at this little 25 Bitcoin block reward. The market's very small for mining versus, the cloud market's a $150 billion market. And there's always demand for data. I mean, who doesn't use Google Drive and Dropbox and all these other services? So that's what I really like about storage, is the market is a lot bigger. It's a lot easier to reach people. You try to sell people on cryptocurrency, that's a little bit hard, but for storage, you're just like, it's like any other service that you use, like Dropbox or Google Drive. It's just faster and more secure, and you can earn money as well. So it's an easier market and an easier sell than perhaps Bitcoin.
Plus, you're actually improving the efficiency of the global computing network that the internet's become.
Right. So we've done some numbers, and that we're kind of roughing out, like, okay, how much does Facebook have? How much does Google have? How much does Amazon Cloud have? And then you compare that to just the free extra hard drive spaces laying around in everyone's computers. And it turns out you can end up storing like all the major cloud providers, Google, Amazon, all these people multiple times over, and just the free extra hard drive space that people just have laying around and they're not doing anything with. So it leads to a whole bunch more capabilities as well in terms of, hey, I have all this storage space that I didn't have access to before, and it's a lot cheaper. What can I do with that?
There are some pretty incredible consequences for what is, I mean, storage is a really simple concept, but it gets really complex when you see how that might change the dynamic of the internet and some of the economic incentives that people have to do what they do, like create huge data centers and stuff. I wonder about the tokens, right? You've got they're tied to, in this case, you're actually tying it to a real world commodity.
A digital commodity. I mean, you have Bitcoin that has value because you can use it to transfer funds and money, and people will accept it. But the value proposition for Storj Coin X, which is our kind of cryptocurrency, is completely different. It's rooted in storage space, something that you use or you have on a daily basis. It's a digital commodity. So in terms of that, we kind of peg that to like you said, a thing that you can use. And I think that's something a little different than we're used to in terms of cryptocurrency. Normally you sell it on, as features or as an anonymous or the mining algorithm, but this is really like, okay, what is this used for?
How do people earn Storj Coin?
So they essentially earn Storj Coin by providing their hard drive space. So they'll run our application. We're really trying to design it. You can look on our website in terms of seeing screenshots for that. We're really design it quite easily where you download a client, you paste an address, and you hit go. That's really how easy we want to make it. And then from there, you're leasing out your hard drive space to the network, and you're earning Storj Coin. On the flip side of that, you want to store some files on the network. You're able to essentially do a reverse of that. So you spend the Storj Coin to store your files on the network. That's going to rewarding the people who are actually holding the chunks of your file. And
so when someone wants to use storage, what they might do is buy Storj Coin using, let's say crypto for this particular example, say Bitcoin. So they buy Storj Coin with Bitcoin, load it into their address, and run the client and store their files in the network.
Yeah. Essentially, we can build out applications to take a lot of the complexity out of that in terms of taking care of all the technical back-end stuff for you. So one of our most important tools kind of in our network and part of our ideal is we want to have abstraction. So we want to make things as simple as possible. Yes, you can go in the API and you can have full control, or the code and have full control. But for the average user, we just want to make everything as simple as drag and drop. You shouldn't have to worry about all the technical stuff going on in the back end. You turn your car keys and you turn on your car, it works, and you can drive it. You don't need to worry about what's going on under the hood.
No, yeah, it's a very, really basic design principle that right now hasn't, we're still wrestling with, it seems.
Well, that's true, but that is the nature of the beast. I mean, it is Bitcoin, it's a cryptocurrency. There's a lot of technicalities to it. That's why I like the storage model. It's something people are already used to. They understand it. So it's a lot easier to explain to people. And we're also looking in the future of solutions where we completely remove the name Bitcoin, blockchain, decentralized technology. We just simply have a service that provides something like people are used to, and they pay in dollars, and the service's goal is to handle all the technical aspects and just provide the user with a nice, clean interface. So they might be using the blockchain and cryptocurrency without even knowing it. That's really where we want to get it, so we can get it into the hands of mainstream users. You don't want to force them to kind of figure out all this technological stuff when you can make it easy for them.
And buying Storj coin to use on the network, do you imagine it will be possible to pay for that using fiat currency?
Yes. So essentially, that would be a service. So we or someone else could essentially provide that service in terms of they abstract. They're not providing. They're not selling cryptocurrency. They are selling data. So they say sign up for this 10 gigabyte plan or this 10 terabyte plan. Doesn't matter. And the user clicks OK and plays with their card or whatnot. Sorry. And on the back end, they're taking care of the cryptocurrency and the technical portions and all that kind of. So they abstract it for the user. So that is a service. Data as a service, perhaps, if you want to put it in a category.
Yeah. You're in an interesting position where you sit between both a service provider, a data service provider, and then also potentially a money transmitter. That's probably a dirty word.
Yeah, so we try to kind of shy away from that. We're not in terms of the business of having this as a cryptocurrency in the traditional sense. In terms of you're buying, and you're selling, and you're speculating, and it's more of just this is the only mechanism that you can use to make that data liquid, to be able to say, I have some extra storage space on my hard drive. I want to store some storage space on the network. How do I get that trade? And cryptocurrency is just that aspect in between that allows that to happen. So we're really not on that side. That might be more of a separate business model. We're not trying to get into kind of the business, being a money exchanger or holding anyone's coins. We're simply in the business of building software to make these things possible.
This is it's really fascinating to see how these new services can take a token and a demand and put the two together.
It's simply a tool, and it goes to something that Vitalik from Ethereum was saying. It's more now about not decentralization but generalization. So we're simply trying to take these tool sets that we have that were brought to us by cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and Bitcoin and apply them now. Use them as tools and apply them to different businesses and ecosystems and whatnot. That's what we're really trying to use it as a tool.
How are you issuing tokens right now?
Sure. So our core token right now is Storj CoinX. That is a counterparty asset as of now. So we did a bit of looking around to the different platforms, and we find that was pretty much the most polished one so far. And we're happy with that choice. And we want to really focus on the data sides of things and making all this technology work. So also, trying to design a coin with that, make things a little complicated versus use counterparty. It makes things a lot easier for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're going to run your own blockchain for Storj, though, correct?
So in terms of that, we really want to be completely decentralized in all manners. So in terms of that, we're looking at implementing multiple cryptocurrencies and multiple data blockchains. So there's a separation between the reward mechanisms, so Storj CoinX, and these new methods and technologies that we're working on in terms of how do you manage data in a blockchain in a way that can scale. So there's a lot of research and a lot of white paper writing that's going on behind that, and a lot of prototyping. So there's really multiple parts to that.
Really? So what data, so you're using a blockchain as an addressing system, or are you actually talking about, yeah?
Yeah. So that's something some people tried probably in the past, where they try to store data in a blockchain, but it doesn't quite work. You end up with an issue called blockchain bloat, where essentially you have 1,000 people connected on this network, and you store a megabyte. Well, essentially you just multiply that by 1,000. So it's not very scalable. What we can do is essentially, like you said, use the blockchain as an addressing system. So here's an identifier, here's where that particular resource is, and everyone can see that listing. And it's a really great method for using it that way.
You have this huge network of data, but I'm wondering about, you used the word redundancy before. And
Sure.
To me, that seems really important, because if I'm going to chuck my data in a cloud, I want to know that it's going to be there, and it's not going to be, especially if I'm storing it on a random person's computer. I want to know that it's actually going to be there, and it's going to stick around, and it's safe, you know?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Definitely that's what you want to happen. So in terms of that, the traditional model is, say, okay, you throw your data at a service provider, and they throw it on 3 servers distributed amongst their data centers, and you hope that their data centers don't go down, or files don't get lost, or they have a networking issue. You hope, and really the idea of the cloud, is this ethereal thing that never goes down and is perfect. But in reality, that doesn't happen. You have data center failures, you have switch failures, you have DNS failures, and then something like Amazon S3, where their computing centers go down and takes a quarter of the internet with it. So we like to pretend that these things work all the time, but there's data failures all the time in all these different services. Our thing is more on the peer-to-peer network. So you take your files, you encrypt them, you split them into pieces, and you distribute them among this peer-to-peer network. And essentially all we have to do is just periodically check to make sure those files are there and they haven't been modified in any way. The other portion of that is the redundancy, like you said. So we say, let's go with the standard 3x redundancy that everybody uses. But really, you or the application has control over that redundancy. So if you wanted, you could set that redundancy to 500. And so much less Armageddon or acts of God, your file is going to be protected. So in terms of that, we want to give the user the control on the redundancy and where the data is stored and how it's stored. And that's just something that you can't do with a traditional ecosystem or traditional cloud.
Another question I have is, when you've got all this data floating around, can you position it in the network? Geographically isn't the right word, but it'll do. Can you position it close to the person who's going to be accessing it, so that it's so that it has potentially higher bandwidth?
Sure. So one of the things that we're building out is Metadisk as kind of this front-end interface for the users and for the developers to kind of abstract all the technical tools. I mean, you have this Bitcoin technology, you have to download the client, and you have to deal with all this RPC stuff. And if you ever develop with Bitcoin, it's not the easiest thing to do. But having this application, this decentralized application that we kind of use in our network, allows us to do some really cool things. So essentially, you can pass the software an identifier. Essentially, it's a hash. You can pass this software this identifier, and it can look up on the network and determine where that resource is and what it is, and it can retrieve it. And essentially puts that resource in cache on its particular hardware. And so all you have to do is say, okay, this node or this software is geographically close to me, or there's a couple of them, and all I have to do is simply request that file. They will download on their cache that file, and then I can, at very high speed, stream that file to myself. So there's no real special load balancing that needs to occur. All I have to do is request that file on a node that's close to me, and it will be simply put on that node for me to easily retrieve. So there's no kind of special software load balancing that you have to do to make that happen. You simply have to request the file.
So that file is assembled on a nearby node, and then you download the thing in a single unit. Is that, am I on the right track there?
So you might have one node that has a couple of bits of the file, and another node that has the other couple of bits. So you can download perhaps simultaneously, and then reassemble it on your host computer. Essentially a peer-to-peer network. But divulging away from the peer-to-peer protocols, but it is kind of a peer-to-peer network.
Is it good for, I mean, could you host a website on Storj?
So that's the fun thing is Metadisk, this application that we mainly use in the early network to kind of interface with Storj, simply because it's the easiest way to do it without downloading any software. That is a web application. So it's simply a matter of setting the config settings correctly to essentially have it, instead of downloading the files, to essentially serving those files. So displaying them instead of giving them to you as a download. So that's one of our many things in kind of our wish list is spending a weekend playing around with it and just making it, again, serve files. So serve typical website files instead of getting you to download them. So that's something that can definitely be done in the future.
That would completely change the nature of the internet.
I would hope so. Like to think that we're shaking things up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if successful, that would just, all of these services, like all these cloud services, would be rendered completely useless. Also, server farms and everything. It's the enormity of the effect of that is just hard to really comprehend.
Yeah, it's fun, but hey, every now and again something comes along that shakes things up. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, man.
We think it's a solid idea. So
I reckon it'll be so cool. It would just be so cool to see that happen, and just totally out of left field. Not like, just made by a couple of guys as opposed to, some big think tank with, people and...
This is how all the innovation happens, right? It happens, someone gets a good idea, and they work at it in their garage, for a while with another dude, and then it turns into something called Google. This is how all things start. It's just, you have to have a good idea, the people around you to help implement it and really push the vision forward. But the large changes aren't things that surprise, not things that we kind of predict.
Absolutely. How's the storage community? I know that looking at some of these other projects that we're familiar with, like Next and Counterparty, they have these big communities that do a whole bunch of developing for them, or to enhance the platform itself, or build services on the platform that bring value to the platform. And I'm wondering how what's the storage community like? I know there's got to be so many good ideas that could be thrown out there,
Indeed, yeah. So we have a forum, storjtalk.org. It's kind of getting its sea legs out there. People are definitely jumping in and adding some real good ideas, and that's where I like to go when there's an important decision to make, or something that we need to figure out or brainstorm. I just pose it directly to the community. Should I do this? Should I do this? And that's just kind of the final say. It makes things a lot easier for me. But then we also have another level to that where we essentially have people who say they want to contribute more directly. And we essentially have a live chat that we talk to them pretty much real time throughout the day, 24 hours a day. So we have, let's see, about 22 people on the live chat right now. So that's pretty much the core portion of Storj as of now. And it's growing every day, and those people are all around the world. So the community is really great, and they've been helping me, push stuff out there and help develop and get good ideas as well.
That's really happening. That's a ton of people to have online.
Yeah, and that's we grow every day. We grow every day. So, now that we have some resource and what for the crowd sale, things are definitely starting to expand.
Is the crowd sale still running?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because it was just before, I remember a few days ago, but I haven't. I didn't look at it this just this moment. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Till it's all done. So.
And how much have you guys raised so far?
So we've raised, as of this count that I'm looking at right now, 582 bitcoins.
And when did it start?
It started about 14 days ago. About 14 days ago, right before we left for the Chicago conference.
Okay, that's cool. Well, hopefully this will drum up a bit of community.
I wouldn't mind.
That's awesome. So, have you noticed did you notice, like, as we typically see with a lot of these crowd sales, initial community funding efforts? Did you see a huge influx of interest at the beginning, and then a slowing down, or is that has it been a bit steadier?
Oh, so most of the funds came in like the first 2 days, because we implement a fixed pricing model. So essentially, there's this huge curve for the first portion of the crowd sale that just kind of leveled off, and now it's quite steady. That's just typically how it goes with the fixed price crowd sales.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you'd expect, but it's cool. Like, did you talk to anyone before running it? I know for a while we were talking to Jeremy Lamb of Vend and Joel Dietz and all those guys over at Swarm. Did you get in touch with any of those fellows before starting it?
Oh yeah, so I've been in the space for a while. I've watched quite a few crowd sales, and yes, we did have a little talk around with a bunch of people on the models, and so we're quite happy with our model so far.
Well, it's basic, isn't it? There's just no messing around, so there's no dodgy stuff that can happen if you just got a flat rate crowd sale.
We've seen a lot of crowd sales with all these different models, and we said let's keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And then maybe later on we can play with a bunch of different models and try some cool stuff, but let's just go with something basic for now. No surprises. No token pegging, no funky numbers, just this is what it is. Let's start it. I find that's the best way to kind of approach markets and crowd sales. There's all this price discovery and all this kind of stuff that happens. I just say, this is what it is, and the market can figure out the rest. And normally, if you set the pace, the market will follow.
Yeah, totally.
But if you turn around, the market will hit you in the face. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the crowd sale thing is, the upsets we've seen and some of the just bizarre behavior that's taken place is and bizarre effects. It's really eye opening and it's really exciting, and it
goes to we're just approaching a new type of economics here. The typical rules just kind of got thrown out the window. The typical rules are with governments issuing currency that are inflationary. Bitcoin model just doesn't work, or any cryptocurrency model just doesn't work that way. So your typical models that you've been building up for hundreds of years just don't work anymore. So every new portion is kind of an experiment. We learn something new every day.
Hey, speaking of, I know I'm hopping all over the place for this discussion, but that's just kind of how how I tend to do it. It seems. When you mine with, your drive miner or whatever it'll be called in the end, are you actually generating tokens or, additional tokens that are added to the network? And in doing so, are they generated only if your drive is being used, or do you accrue those, or, just naturally? And does that make Storj Coin X an inflationary currency?
So no, so that's a model that we kind of didn't want to go with. We wanted to stick with a deflationary model. So there's 500 million Storj Coin X's. That's all there will ever be. You have a lot of these protocols for good or bad reasons, or for economic mining reasons. They have mining or all these portions where new coins are created. Our system is completely different in terms of that. So there's no coins being generated. You're simply, I'll go to the analogy of you're renting your empty space out. So in terms of renting, there is no magical currency being created when you rent an apartment or whatnot. No, someone on the other end is paying you for that space. So that works that way in our system in terms of when you are renting out your hard drive on this network. It is more or less a more direct transaction in terms of you're getting paid for hosting a portion of a file. And so in that way, we don't highly devalue the underlying cryptocurrency to this network. It's you're renting something and it's being matched on the other end with something. It's not magically being generated.
No, well, that's I'm just a bit concerned about the about deflationary currency at the moment. I don't know if this is unnecessarily off topic. Deflationary currency just seems like it's you might wind up with it being concentrated in certain areas in the network. I mean, and you might find Storj Coin X being speculated upon. And do you think that might have a negative effect on the service that it provides?
Not necessarily. I think because it's a divisible token, of course there will be fluctuations in the network availability and essentially how people are running their rigs. But really, it goes back to what we were saying before in terms of turning data into a digital commodity. And the way you do that is by building essentially a market for data. And you don't want to, again, magically kind of print this token of value.
Have I got you? Bloody Skype? Have I got you back?
Are you back? I'm back.
All right.
Yeah, so that was me. So this is further why we should decentralize all the things, because Skype is not decentralized, and look where it's got us.
Are you sure? I think maybe Skype's peer-to-peer, isn't it?
It's peer-to-peer, but I wish it was open source so I could fix the bugs myself.
Yeah.
They're obviously not doing the best job of that.
No, evidently not.
Alright, so where were we? So we were about magically creating cryptocurrency through mining and other means?
Yeah.
So in terms of that, we really want to make it a market for data. So you have data on one side that's being matched with some other data or some want or some need on the other side. A lot of people kind of peg Bitcoin as a deflationary currency, but the fact of the matter is, it's mining is still going on. There's still inflation going on in that network. New tokens are being created, and we really don't want to get into that because again, there is no mining. We don't need that to secure the network, and so we can kind of eliminate that strain on the network and simply provide value to the people actually running the network and not have any quote-unquote tax through mining. Essentially, that's what it is. When you have that new block being created, you're devaluing all the people who hold that cryptocurrency by a small amount that they don't necessarily realize it, but it adds up over time. And so in terms of that, we kind of don't want to get into that. But you were saying more about, how that would affect the service. In terms of that value drives network. So if there's a lot of demand, that value increase will convince people that they need to go run to their local Best Buy, get a bunch of hard drives, and plug them into the network. And so we can kind of balance out the supply and demand. And that's really what that token is doing, is simply providing a balance to the want for storage space, the need for storage space, and then people on the other side matching that. And so we get away with the inflationary portion that just devalues that.
Something I just had a discussion with Justice Ranvier recently, and he made the remark that all of these systems and projects are going forward, and they all have these bloody tokens involved, and they could all be produced without a token and work perfectly fine. And I kind of, I see his point, but I wonder if there's something to this token, like you said, the ability to balance supply and demand through generating value. And I wonder what's your view? So you went with a token, obviously, because it was a way of incentivizing people to participate in the network.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, what's your view on the tokenizing of all these projects?
For our platform, I completely disagree that this token is a necessary portion of the network to drive things around, because I can't necessarily take my hard drive physically and say, like, here's 500 gigabytes, I want to trade it over there. What I'm going to do, mail that in the mail or something to exchange it for another 500 gigabytes somewhere else? No, you can't do that. So in terms of that, it is useful for our project, and I think there's plenty of other projects out there that cryptocurrency is useful as a mechanism. But then again, there's plenty other projects out there as well that they just kind of slap a token on it, and it's the next best thing since sliced bread. That necessarily isn't the case.
It's a really interesting discussion to that I think needs to start happening. Is, do we really need all these tokens?
And I think the ultimate question is probably no. That's how you sell it. I mean, a funny thing, before I got into Storj, I actually bought CoinGen. Bought the source code for that. I was going to do some fun stuff with it. I mean, that's a fun thing where you plug in a couple numbers, hit go, and it pops out a coin. Oh look, here we go. So that's kind of the fun thing about the Bitcoin network and cryptocurrency right now is tokens are all the rage, cryptocurrencies are all the rage. If you can get your marketing out there and pretend you have value, then it might turn out well for you. So that's something I think we're seeing that market being kind of saturated, and people are going away from that. But we'll see.
The altcoins have been crashing.
Well, I think most of that is tied to Bitcoin itself. I mean, I don't see any altcoins or any cryptocurrencies going the other way when Bitcoin goes up or down. So everything's tied to Bitcoin in a market. So I think Bitcoin has a lot to do with that.
Cool. Well, there's got to be tons more stuff I can ask you. Frankly, I mean, we have been talking for a while, but is there anything you want to address?
No, I just encourage anyone to kind of take a look at Storj, our website, storj.io is our main website, and that's going to give you a little bit more information about our platform, the apps we're working on, and then we have a nice little video that explains it quite succinctly in about a minute. So if you haven't taken a look at that, I encourage people to take a look at that. And then also we have our crowd sale going on now, which will allow you to contribute Bitcoins to development. But the key part of that is you get early access to our software, Metadisk, what's now known as DryMiner, but may change, to allow you to sell your storage space, and then of course storage points. So 3 rewards in there. So those portions, the early access portions, are really key because we're really looking to give the early software to the people who actually help build it, and make sure they're happy first. And then maybe, when that's all nice and done and everyone's happy, then we can move on to the traditional network. But we're really trying to keep it in our own network as of now as we build things out. So we think those are pretty solid rewards that would make people help and contribute and get something back from it.
How did the whole idea for Storj Coin come about, and how long did it take you to develop as an idea, and how long? Obviously you produced it at the hackathon, so you actually produced the proof of concept in a short amount of time. But could you describe the development of the idea?
Sure, it came perhaps from 2 main things. So one was, one day I was kind of working on a project where I wanted to essentially archive the Twitter fire hose. So the Twitter fire hose is essentially streams to you tweets in real time all around the world, and it adds up to gigabytes and gigabytes of data a day. And it gets very, very large, and that's only a very small subset of the total tweets in the day. And I wanted to collect this information and analyze it. And I was putting it on a little tiny server, and I kept on filling up the server, and I had to download it to my physical desktop and store it that way, and then clean out the server and go again. And I was looking at cloud servers saying, oh, well, I could purchase this with a larger hard drive space and more bandwidth. And I was like, wait a minute, this cost me like thousands of dollars. I don't want to pay this. And I looked at it on my computer. I'm like, well, like I could just go to Best Buy and buy like 1 drive, and that would account for all I would need. But I don't have like the constant connectivity and the fast transfer speed. And then that's kind of when it hit me how much the traditional services were just overcharging me for the exact same thing that, I had my hard drive. The only difference is, I wanted multiple copies spread out on a network, so perhaps I could maybe get someone else to trade that drive space with me. So if my computer crashed or anything happened, I'd still have that on the network. So it was kind of putting those ideas together. Wait a minute, I could do the same thing on a person-to-person level instead of me paying a company. And it really, the cryptocurrency and the blockchain stuff was the technology to make that happen. So that was one part. That's things like, I need this myself. The other part was like the vision and the idea, and even the name. It came from a post that Bitcoin core developer Gregory Maxwell put out in about 2011. He theorized this network called Storj, or I think it was pronounced Storj, with a capital J, where essentially you have these autonomous Bitcoin agents. So these are AI that live in a network that you send your file to them to temporarily store, and you send them some Bitcoins for it. And they take care of your file, and they serve it to you and move it around the network. and then they take those Bitcoins and use to buy the server space that they're being hosted on. So these are not human controlled, these are not person controlled. These are completely autonomous programs that buy their own server space and launch off new instances and completely manage the network themselves without any human interaction. So that kind of like inspired the project. Like, wow, that would be a really cool thing to make happen. But first, we have to make a decentralized storage network. So I said, hey, let's just start with that. Let's not make sentient AI that roam the world. Let's just make a decentralized storage network.
I was actually reading that article and I was like, whoa, this is complex. Like, are you serious, man?
Well, it's really not that difficult in terms of things that you can break it down into small pieces that are actually achievable. So that is kind of our long-term goal, and we have someone on the team who really does a lot of the bio-inspired stuff, has done some AI stuff, Josh Brandoff. So he's really working on pushing that out there. So when the network is a little bit more stable, we will start playing around with software that essentially runs itself and hosts files and gets Bitcoins for it and pays for its own server space. So we're looking, we already have a technology partner in that to make that possible. So we have all the component parts. It's just a matter of spending some time to get things stable and putting it together.
It sounds just amazing, really mind-boggling.
Well, it's fun stuff. It keeps me up at night. I mean, it's 3 a.m. here, and I'm working on plenty of stuff, and I'm happy to be working on a project like this. It's exciting. So I figure it's about the best thing I can do with myself as of right now.
Yeah, I bet. It's the more I think about it, just the simplicity of the concept almost eclipses just the tremendous potential and far-reaching effects that it's inevitably will have if and when it's successful.
Yeah, we're even looking forward to that. So we've been contacted by a few people. I think Baylor College of Medicine is one of the first people that contacted us. They're like, our traditional cloud solution doesn't really work that well. We're transferring huge amounts of data, and we're paying huge amounts of money for this. I'm like, I did the calculations, like Amazon S3 is like a couple $1,000. Did the calculations on our system, like $15. I'm like, wait a minute. So really, that's one of the places that we're really looking to bootstrap the network is biodata and video production. These two places use huge amounts of data, and the current systems just don't work, and they're very expensive.
When you say biodata, you mean data from the the medical, I guess the medical and research communities?
Sure. So they're using more typical services like Amazon S3 or Google Cloud or whatnot to store and transfer their data. And it only works to a point.
I've heard those guys complaining. I've heard people in that field complain about bandwidth issues, and
I can get into more future tech for storage. So we have a lot of ideas, but we're just trying to implement one thing at a time. So some of these things we already know the solutions to them. So one of the problems is if you have a very, 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 very large file, we're talking about, or files, let's just say data. You're collecting raw data from experiments. So I did, when I was in college, I did a lot of research. One place was at University of Washington in Seattle, and I also did some research with the Army at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And one of the things you end up doing when you're doing research is generating these huge amounts of data sets. You have these really great tools that generate huge amounts of data, but it's very hard to move this data around. So, doing some trials at University of Washington where having these high-speed video cameras giving gigabytes and gigabytes of data in, a 1 minute, 2 minute trial. So in terms of being actually able to store that and transfer that around, it's near impossible with traditional speeds. United States is actually kind of one of the slowest providers of bandwidth or in terms of network speed. And you just can't fit that data through the internet when you have like a petabyte of data. It'd take you weeks or months or years. So essentially what you can do, where a lot of these large research institutions or people like NASA who have like huge satellite data sets that they need to move around, they don't transfer it through the internet. You can't do it because you can't stream it through fast enough. So what they do, it's actually faster. This blows people's mind a little bit. It's faster to take a bunch of hard drives, put them in a package, and ship them over first class to your other location than it is to transfer it through the internet at, with a gigabit connection. So that's in terms of stuff that we're looking towards in the future, is where we can apply our same algorithms to that, so we can do our same redundancy checks and whatnot, but we don't actually have to transfer data through a physical line. We can ship a drive to another location, and then we can check and access that drive through the network. And that allows you to transfer petabytes of data by essentially shipping the hard drives to the mail, which is a crazy concept, but if you do the math, it's orders of magnitude faster.
Low latency, though.
Yeah, yes. I would not suggest gaming on it.
That's incredible, though. That's a really out of left field thought. The whole time I was waiting for you to find a way.
There's a name for it. It's called SneakerNet. I'll reach out to your audience if anyone would like to get involved. Just send us an email at hello@storj.io. That's storj.io. Or just jump in on our forums and just let us know what you like to work on and what your skill sets are, and we'll find a place for you.
Hey, this is it's been really great talking to you, Sean, and I'm gonna have to go through this and remove any references to actually investing.
Great. So yeah, there's we don't want to get away with that, and the whole bit license fiasco.
Oh my god.
We will be making some comments on that on Storj. We don't like that much. And we might have to end up actually blocking New York from our services, or at least the nodes that we control and host. I'm sorry to the people who live in New York, but we just don't want to deal with that.
Nah.
We try to be, you can structure the model in the ways that it's a revolutionary technology, but you don't want to be uncareful, I'll say. You don't want to just blatantly violate, security violations and all that kind of stuff. You can do your research and say, okay, we can address this in this manner that doesn't compromise us. So I think that's a lot of thing that's happening in the crypto space. People are like, oh yeah, IPO and invest and equity. I'm like, oh god, every time I see those words, I kind of go, whoa, you're going to go to jail. We stay away from that. We try to keep a clean nose, and we definitely have some people that we're working on the legal side. Is you can do your due diligence and make sure things are clean.
That's awesome, man. And it's really great to hear that you've thought about it and are approaching it in a responsible manner, because
right.
Yeah, some of it's pretty. Ugh.
It's also the nature of the protocol. I mean, you have something so potentially game changing, and you don't want a screw up that you could have prevented to stop it all. I mean, even look at Bitcoin. You look at all the stuff that they were building in the protocol at the beginning, and then they got into these opcodes that might allow some kind of Turing-complete blockchain, and they went, we have all this innovation, let's not put that in there because that could actually kill it. So that's a great platform to do amazing things, but
that could actually kill the concept as well. So you have to be careful in terms of that. So we try to do that.
We're also looking at some other ways. So we have essentially the last point is so we have a developer pool, and this is actually a little bit different than any other protocol. So we have, of course, the funds that are going to be dispersed through crowd sales. That's essentially 70% of the storage coin. And then we have 15% allocated to the developers to be able to push out projects on our end. But then we balance that. So I think we're the only protocol that does this. We balance the developer pool with a community pool that's equal in value. So developers have 15%, community has 15%. And we're really trying to push the community to kind of take hold of their funds and manage them through multi-signature. And so we want to give them equal power. So we're also looking at ways of interacting with other protocols so they can manage giveaways and whatnot and make sure people who talk about the storage protocol and ecosystem also get rewarded as well. So we're thinking of some protocols in there. And so we really love people to get involved because there's, of course, the crowd sale, which is the easiest part to get our token. But also by participating and developing and talking about it, that's another way. So as long as you provide value to the protocol, either through contributing to development, contributing your storage space, or actually sitting there building apps, or talking about it and figuring out good ideas and promoting the concept. There's tokens in there for you. So that's one thing we're also trying to push out.
That's something that's really needed, and I think you'd find a lot of communities. I think of Next in particular could have learned a ton, or probably I should say could have learned, knows all about that. I mean, they've.
Well, yeah, I mean it's interesting. So you can have the best protocol that does all these nice things, but if you don't have proper distribution, it will kill you. So in terms of that, we just want to make it fair. So one thing I observe with other protocols is essentially the developers have all these funds, and then the community has all these great ideas, and then the community is like, we want to do this, and then they have to ask permission. We don't want to get into that. Let us focus on development. Let me worry about deterministic seeds and Merkle trees and all that fun stuff, and you can worry about the apps that you want to build, and you have the resources to make that happen. So I think that everyone's working towards the same goals. Give them the resources to do that. Don't try to hold up all the funds on your end. So I think that will really be a model that perhaps might work out quite well, and people will start to implement as they see it. The real power of the community when you give them the resources that they need.
Yeah, community management is is a really unique side of this that gets kind of lost, in the haze of kind of techno babble. Often is you have this.
Well, for me, I got lucky because I actually ran a very, very large forum in my early teens that had a very large amount of users. So we broke about 100,000 posts, and it broke. It was on a piece of software, Blender, that deals with 3D graphics and animation, and I had a YouTube series up there that garnered a few million hits. So I've been in the community space. I know how to work a community from kind of my early days. So I'm just taking what I learned and reapplying it again.
Yeah,
so that's why we place such importance on community, because I definitely know the power of that just from previous experience.
it sounds like you've got all the tools.
Well, so that's why it's taken me a while to build Storj. It was just a learning process over the past 2 years since I've been introduced to cryptocurrency, getting involved in Bitcoin development just a teeny bit on some Eds libraries, Purecoin, Primecoin, involved with Invictus and BitShares in the early days, and it was just a learning experience for me to learn the good things and the mistakes. And then it was time for me to apply those in a protocol that I could get behind. So
I like to think that the decisions that I make are not just willy-nilly. It's just like, okay, there's some data behind it. Because at the end of the day, I'm a computer scientist, so I think very literally and very logically. So this happens because that happened before. It follows a pattern. So that's the way I like to think of it, and that's the way I like to act.
Hey, can I ask you, and I won't necessarily publish this, but can I ask you about your opinion on MaidSafe?
Sure. So I'd love you to publish this. So the funny thing about MaidSafe is I think we have to do a little better to address this misconception, is that MaidSafe and Storj are not competitors at all. We actually, when we were doing our due diligence for Storj with the Bit Angels, is when we discovered MaidSafe with them, and then that's when MaidSafe brought that's when BitAngels brought MaidSafe kind of into the Bitcoin ecosystem when we were doing that research. So we've been talking to them from day one, and we essentially build. The cool thing about Storj is we build both apps and protocol. So in terms of another protocol that does things a little differently, that's fine. We can just plug it into our front-end apps. So we're not only just looking at MaidSafe, Siacoin that's doing essentially Quorum, Permacoin, Filecoin, all these different cool technological approaches to decentralized storage. Again, we build protocols and apps, so we can just plug them into the front end and have the network, have the users, have the applications, have multiple choices. And we can essentially just make it easy. You can make APIs to make all these platforms work together rather than against each other. I mean, imagine if you could take a file on Dropbox and access it through Google Drive. You just don't have that kind of interoperability with the normal platforms. But you can do that with decentralized data. And that's the really cool thing. I think you'll see a lot of these platforms. And we really try to make it a point to mesh these things together and reach out to these people. It's just like, why would we ever need to compete when we could just work together when it's such a big market? And there's so many opportunities and possibilities. Let's just work together and just make everything interoperable.
Why the hell not? It just seems like it's such a powerful tool, and to the fact that you guys have managed to actually talk to people and achieve something like interoperability, which is just the icing on the cake. I mean, I don't know how. It seems I have no idea. It boggles the mind. I have no idea how you would go about it. But I guess it's just with data. It's just about addressing, isn't it?
It's you get in with some Bitcoin users. You sit down and talk, and you find that we all share some type of ideology on decentralization and technologies pushing things forward, and privacy and encryption and power to the users and all these other ideological concepts. It's really easy to say, hey, let's just work together. We're achieving the same goals here. We have the same idea. Let's just work together. And it's very easy to, I have plenty of friends in the cryptocurrency space, go over to their house or have dinner with them or whatnot. It's a very easy space to work with because we all have kind of the same ideals and we want to go to the same place. So in terms of when I met the MaidSafe guys, the first time, we had a great conversation. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. So just want to keep on working, with these guys. So it actually works out. It's really easy to do. You just have to say, hey, let's try this.
It sounds like you're living the dream.
I completely am. I really am. So I'm full in. So I get paid in Bitcoin. I try to do most of my expenses in Bitcoin. We've been using our own software internally to share and distribute files. It's actually funny. When we were distributing some of our decks and whatnot on the website, it actually goes through a prototype software. No one actually, I think, realized that they're actually using storage. A lot of people think that this is something coming out in the future or whatnot. But if they went to our website and downloaded our deck, they use storage. They use our prototype software without even knowing it. We really want to make it seamless, and we really want to put it out there.
Awesome. Great. Hey, this has been an awesome chat, Sean, and awesome content for me. I mean, this is brilliant. You know, you're right on the pulse and right on the money as far as what people are interested in. So it's awesome to have the opportunity to talk to you. And
sure, I love this as well. I love to talk more. There's plenty more areas in decentralized storage. It's a wide concept. I think it's going to open up a new market in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
can I get in touch with you down the track a bit? And what I might do is get the community to drum up a few ideas and a few things to run past you that maybe you can help shed a bit of light on, be they related to storage or other platforms or just other concepts.
Definitely want to do that. So I try to keep my ear to the ground as much as possible. I mean, even with the storage, as of now, the original idea that I had in terms of decentralized storage was mainly influenced by user feedback. So I started as, hey, here's a network where you can store your files and they'll be encrypted and it'll be secure and private. And then I said, oh yeah, as an aside, perhaps you might be able to lease your storage space and network. And everyone gravitated towards that. So we changed our value proposition and focused that on that more. That's because people wanted it. So in terms of that, definitely open to getting as much feedback as possible and just tell us what you want us to do. And if we have consensus on that, let's get it done. Very flexible in terms of that, because you don't want to build something up and then nobody actually wants it. So we'll build what people want us to build.
What a legend, eh? Check out Storj at Storj, that's storj.io, also at storjtalk.org, and they're on Reddit too. And now for the magic word. I'm not going to be making these easy. Okay, so let this be kind of a taste of what's to come. Today's magic word is, well, it's two words. It's a chemical. It's poisonous to both people and werewolves. It's also used by winemakers in diagnosing olfactory flaws in wine. So, poisonous to werewolves, chemical used in diagnosing olfactory flaws in wine. Easy. Thanks to Cesis for the music, and thanks to Sean Wilkinson for the content. Contact me at beyondbitcoinshow@gmail.com. Oh, and before I go, I have an interview with Justice Ranvier in the pipeline. I'll be getting that out as soon as possible. It's been sitting on this computer floating around the North Island for God knows how long. Really, really great stuff. That'll be on the next episode, hopefully early next week.